Dividing fractions. Okay, let's go back to multiplication. 2 times 3 is equal to 6. When you divide 6 by 3, you're saying how many 3's are in 6? That's 2. 1/2 divided by 1/4, you're saying how many 1/4 are in 1/2? So if you have half, how many 1/4 are in it? Well, how do you do this? When you divide by a fraction, you rewrite it as a multiplication. You take the reciprocal of the divisor and multiply by that. Down. So you multiply by the reciprocal. Reciprocal means you trade the numerator and the denominator of the divisor. That's the second fraction, the one that you're dividing by. You'll notice that the fraction that's being divided stays the same. And then just like before, you reduce before you multiply. So we get 1 times 2, which is 2, over 1. 2 divided by 1 is 2. So that answers the question. How many 1/4 are in a half? There's 2. Let's do another. All right, we have 35 over 36 divided by 15 over 18. So the number that's doing the dividing is 15/18. So this is the fraction that we rewrite. The number that you're dividing stays the same. And when you take the reciprocal, it changes to a multiplication statement. And then remember, you always reduce before you multiply. So 35 is 5 times 7. 36, we could either do 6 times 6 or 4 times 9. 18, 3 times 6 or 2 times 9. 5 over 5 equals 1. 9 over 9 equals 1. I'm going to circle what's left and check, can anything else be broken down? Well, this 2 can go into this 4. So that's 7 times 2 over 2 times 2 times 3. And the answer is 7 over 6. Let's try another. All right, 42 divided by over 48 divided by 49 over 64. So the first thing you want to do is rewrite it as a multiplication statement. This is the number that's doing the dividing. So that's the number that you take the reciprocal of. So we have 42 over 48. And then we change the divided by into a multiply. And remember that you always reduce before you multiply. So 42 is 6 times 7, 48, 6 times 8, 64, 8 times 8, 49, 7 times 7, 8 over 8 is equal to 1. 7 over 7 is equal to 1. 6 over 6 is equal to 1. So the answer is 8 over 7. Let's do another one. All right, what's going on here? We have 2/3. It's being divided by 4 over 5, and then you multiply by 20 over 24. So we're dividing by 4/5. So that's the only fraction that you need to take the reciprocal of to change it into a multiply. So we have the 2/3. It's times 5 over 4. And then this is still a multiply. And then we reduce before you multiply. I would break down that 4, but I'm noticing it goes into 20. 24. I'm looking at that 2, so I'm just going to write 2 times 12. Let's see what happens. You have 4 over 4 equals 1. I really want to cancel those 5s, but they're both in the numerator. So that does not cancel. I have 2 over 2 equals 1. And then the 3 goes into the 12, but they're both in the denominator. So we just multiply everything that's left. 5 times 5 is 25. 3 times 12, 36. Let's do another. All right, what do we do if we have a whole number divided by a fraction? Well, just like before, you can make the whole number into a fraction. And then 4 over 7 is the fraction that we're dividing by. So that's the one that we take the reciprocal of. And then when you take the reciprocal, you make it into a multiplication statement. And then reduce. So 4 is 2 times 2. 2 over 2 is equal to 1. 1 times 2 is 2, so we get 7 over 2. Let's try another one. All right, we have 3 times 5/7 divided by 35 over 42. And if you want, you could hit pause and try it before watching the answer. All right. So I'm multiplying by 5 over 7 and dividing by 35 over 42. And because this is the fraction I'm dividing by, that's the one I want to take the reciprocal of. 3 is a whole number, so I'm going to make that into a fraction by putting a 1 in the denominator. And to change this into a multiplication statement, I take the reciprocal. Then you want to reduce before you multiply. "42 is 6 times 7. 35 is 5 times 7. 5 over 5 equals 1. 7 over 7 equals 1. If you want, you can circle what's left. So we have 3 times 6, which is 18, over 1 times 7. All right, let's talk a little bit about fractions and exponents. When you have 2/3, the quantity squared, remember that exponents are a shorthand way of writing repeated multiplication. So 2/3 squared is 2/3 times 2/3. What if we have negative 5/4 squared? Well, because the negative is inside the parentheses, the negative gets repeated. So negative 5/4 times negative 5/4. Negative times a negative is a positive. Let's do another. All right, 1/2 cubed. Well, that's going to be 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. 1 times 1 times 1 is just 1. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Remember, in the order of operations, you have parentheses, then exponents, and then multiply, divide, and then add, subtract. So we're talking about dividing fractions, and now we're also talking about exponents. So you're going to want to do the exponent before the division. Let's do an example. All right, so we have 2/3 squared divided by 40/36. So we do the exponent before the division. So 2/3 squared is 2/3 times 2/3. Let's leave that in parentheses just so that we remember that we do that before we do the division. So that's going to be 4/9. You can also just leave those in that form because you might end up factoring later. All right. And then we're dividing by a fraction. So we want to rewrite that as a multiplication. Remember, the fraction that you're dividing by, that's the one that you take the reciprocal of. So we have 4/9 times 36/40. And I could break down the 4, but I'm looking at it goes into the 40. That's 4 times 10. And I could break down the 9, but 9 goes into 36. So I'm going to write 4 times 9. I get 4/4 equals 1. 9/9 equals 1. What do I have left? 4/10. So I'll keep factoring. 2 times 2 over 2 times 5. 2/2 equals 1. My answer is 2/5. Let's try another one. All right, let's try this example. And if you want, you could hit pause and try it out yourself before watching the answer. All right, so we have an exponent, there's a multiplication, and then a division. So we do the exponent first. And remember that 1/2 squared is 1/2 times 1/2. So 1/2 squared is 1/4. All right, we're dividing by 14/35. So I'm going to rewrite that as a multiplication by taking the reciprocal of the number we're dividing by. Remember, the number you're dividing by is called the divisor. And then before you multiply, you want to reduce. So 8 is 2 times 4. 25 is 5 times 5. I have a 4 here, so I'm not going to break this one down. 35 is 5 times 7. 14 is 2 times 7. So I got the 4/4. 5/5. 7/7 equals 1. 2/2 equals 1. What do I have left? Is 1/5.